Hi, I'm Mary Coles, and I am here with Theater Baton Rouge today to interview the wonderful Evan Roider. So, Evan here is a very talented conductor and music director. Evan received his BM in piano from the Hartt School in Connecticut and then graduated from University of Cincinnati's College and Conservatory of Music, where he earned a master's in orchestral conducting. He has performed at a lot of very impressive festivals, including Songfest, the Indiana University Summer Music Festival, and my personal favorite that I would love to hear more about, the Amalfi Coast Music Festival. As a music director, Evan has led amazing productions, including A Chorus Line, Company, Into the Woods, The Music Man, Avenue Q, Spring Awakening, The Wizard of Oz, and many, many others. As a conductor, he has had engagements with the San Diego Symphony, Utah Symphony, Charlotte Symphony, Toledo Symphony, and many other venues. Currently, Evan is serving as the music director and conductor for the national tour of Wicked. Welcome, Evan. Those were just a few of your amazing credits. We are so, so excited to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's great to talk.
Yeah, so I guess first of all, I know I kind of got to talk a bit about your professional accolades, but we would love to hear about your connection with Theater Baton Rouge for those who may not know you or may not realize that you are from Theater Baton Rouge.
Yeah, so I grew up in Baton Rouge. I started getting involved with Theater Baton Rouge, then Baton Rouge Little Theater at a young age. And first as a performer, like on the stage. But I played the piano as a kid, and I like to be on the stage. And eventually it just made sense that I'd go somewhere in the middle, the orchestra pit. So I think the first show I worked on as part of like a music team was Chicago at TBR. And then just did a number of shows there while I was in high school, like Chicago, Singing in the Rain, Evita. I can't even name all of them. Um, yeah, on and on. And then during college, I'd come back and do a few things, like I did Avenue Q, and then The Music Man. Um, and so yeah, it's been a long and really wonderful relationship.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So, along the lines of where you began, what show or performance initially sparked your passion for live theater and music?
Oh, well, the first show I ever did
Mhm.
was The Music Man when I was like, I don't even know how old, like 7 years old, So immediately I was interested, but like as a kid, I remember being obsessed with, Phantom of the Opera and of course all the things you're obsessed with.
Yeah.
So I don't really remember a time when I wasn't like wanting to do musical theater.
Hmm.
It's just been my passion for a really long time.
One of those bugs where when you're bit, it never goes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I know you kind of talked about how you've been playing piano since you were younger. And so, was performing with a touring company on your radar when you first started performing when you were younger? Or did you kind of think maybe you'd do something more local? Did you ever see yourself on the national stage?
I mean, yeah, I think I always wanted to be working on big Broadway shows from the very
Mhm.
beginning. That was always my dream. There was a sort of like college age crisis where I thought maybe I should be like only a classical musician and give up my love for musical theater, but that was short lived, and I came right back to it. So yeah, I mean that's always been like the goal and the picture I had in my mind for as long as I can remember. Yeah,
That's amazing. And so,
yeah.
two young artists who have an interest in either conducting, being a music director, or acting or doing something either for Broadway or touring companies, what advice would you give to them for first, how to start building their skill sets, and second, kind of if you have any wisdom on what path to take that's smart or
Yeah.
maybe what not to do?
Um, I think first off, like when you're young and uh pursuing things in the beginning, you just have to do everything you can. Take every single opportunity to really figure out where your passion is. I think there are so many roles in the theater, especially when you get into a professional level, people don't realize, people are on the stage when they're kids, they don't realize there are all these roles in crew, wardrobe, music, company management, stage management, marketing, um, being an executive director somewhere. I mean, administrative. There's so many roles, so I think it's really important to just be around all of those positions within an organization, experience it all, and see what really, sparks your interest. And then I think, when it gets later in your life, you have to really think about, is this really something I want to devote the next 50 or 60 years of my life to? Because it is a hustle, right? It's a hustle all the time. Nothing is steady. Nothing is forever. Shows come, they go, they close. They never open. You never know what's going to happen. So I think you really have to decide, is this something I want to make a commitment to? Because there are certainly steadier paths to be on in life. Yeah.
And so with that hustle, what are ways that you have been able to manage the hustle and keep the spark of your love for theater alive while also treating it as the job that it is?
Oof. I mean, that's a really good question. I think it's hard. I think for me personally, I do Wicked
Mhm.
8 times a week. Whether I'm conducting it 8 times a week, I'm in the building for the most part, maybe in rehearsal during a show, but I'm usually conducting the show, 6, 7 times a week. So, and I've done that over 1,000 times now.
Wow.
So for me personally, it's just constantly reinvesting. Like the
Mhm.
moment I decide, today I'm not feeling it so much, I'm just going to be relaxed and sort of just get through it. Like that does not help me at all. It's always just trying to beat it, even if it's little things. Like
Mhm.
today I'm going to focus on this one song or this one moment and try to help this or do that, help the pacing here. Then it gives me something to work towards. So I think it's just always being invested, even when you don't want to be some days.
Yes, absolutely. Is there a
Yeah.
particular song in Wicked that you never feel like you have to force yourself to be invested? Like every time it's that breath of fresh air?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like most people's answer to that is defying gravity, but for
Yeah.
me, it's totally The Wizard and I, because it's the first moment you've met Elphaba, and then you're just like, it's like you're going inside her mind into this journey, and it's the start of the whole show. And it's just like when she gets to the end, stand there with the wizard. It's such a powerful moment, Nothing like crazy technicals happening. She's not
Yeah.
flying. She's just standing, and there are two towers opening up, and it's just like a thrilling theatrical moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just every alphabet brings such life and joy to it.
Oh yeah.
It's so fun. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so you had started with performing on stage, and now, as we've discussed, you're in the pit. Do you ever get back into performing at all, or would you want to get back into performing, or have you waved that girl, the world goodbye?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think my passion is really in um working with onstage performers and guiding performances, and helping in that way. And then, of course, I do a lot of guest conducting. So that's a little more performative, I guess, because you're on the stage,
Mhm.
versus in the orchestra pit. But I think I've found where I belong.
I love it.
I mean, I don't think I wasn't very good.
Oh, I'm
That was the problem. I wasn't very good. Um, I'm much better at this.
Well, you kind of just mentioned that conducting is, in a way, very collaborative with the performers and singers. And so, can you talk more about that, especially for young artists who maybe don't realize how much their work is married in with the orchestra and the conductor and what that relationship is like?
Yeah, I think it depends on the show. With a show, I've worked on some shows that are very focused on that relationship. Like I toured with Les Mis, and now I'm with Wicked. They're big musicals with a lot of music.
Wow.
So yeah, there's always going to be that relationship there. Whether it comes to it's pacing, it's tempo, it's how are we going to um, find the sort of rise and fall moments of a number. Like that's what I love about it, is working with when Elphaba's singing The Wizard and I, it's just me and her, so it's like the truest collaboration, I think.
That's so cool. I've never thought about it that way. I love that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we talked about your credits, but what was the moment where you're like, this is my big break, and a contract that you got where you kind of felt like, whoa, I'm really getting to do something incredible and special. Did you ever have that moment, or is it kind of
I don't think like my mind I don't function like that. Like I think for me, like the big break is always the next thing. I think that's why I like enjoy the hustle and I'm maybe good at the hustle, is because I'm always looking towards,
Mhm.
the reason I ended up doing Wicked on tour was because I was subbing keyboards for Wicked on Broadway. Obviously, that was special. There's nothing like, playing a show on Broadway. Like, that's something you dreamed of your entire life. Then you're doing Wicked on tour, and that's I mean, it's just like, it's always this summer I'm going to, you mentioned, I'm going to conduct Utah Symphony and San Diego Symphony. I'm really excited about those programs. Like, I'm always looking, and then I'm even thinking about, like, what are programs I want to do in 25, 26 with orchestra, and thinking, oh, this could be really cool. So I think it's always just about looking forward. I don't really stop in the moment, which is kind of a problem too. I don't recommend it, but
Hey, but it's also healthy. You're always excited
yeah.
to go towards the next thing. And so,
Yeah.
kind of on the flip of that, I know most people in theater are more familiar with how actors receive a ton of rejection. What is that world
Mhm.
like for conductors for getting jobs? And, how is that process similar and comparable to actors auditioning? And how is it different in those ways?
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, it is similar in that, there's going to be a lot of rejection. I
Hmm.
mean, I tell people, like, I've been rejected from a lot more jobs than I, like, ever have gotten. That's just like the way the business is, and you can't take it personally. I mean, look, some people, who are making those decisions, they have people in mind already, or there's someone better suited to that particular show or concert. um I think the difference is, it's much more, and maybe this makes it easier or harder. An actor, you can walk into an audition room and you have that shot. I think when you're a conductor, it's much more about networking and being in the right place at the right time, and somebody sees your work here or there, and then this place, theater or orchestra or whatever, decides to take a shot on you. I think the biggest thing, and this is true for actors too, is once you get that shot, you have to be so prepared,
Hmm.
right? Because you want to either be asked back or obviously make a good impression for the future. Like, so it's I think that's where it really gets hard, especially if you're getting a lot of work, right? You have to, it's a lot of preparation.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
so you kind of have mentioned that with, how to handle rejection, but is there any more advice that you can give to either young up and coming music directors,
I don't
conductors?
know, maybe they could let me know. I mean, I'm really not good at it. I mean,
Really?
I
You
I
seem to
guess I
handle it,
guess in a
you
way,
talk about it well.
yeah, I guess in a way, what I am good at is, like, because, like I said, I'm always looking towards the next thing. Like, when
Mhm.
something doesn't work out, I'm already like, okay, move on, time to go.
Nice.
And that, I think that probably is the healthiest thing. You just leave it and go. And you never know. Like, there have been gigs that I have not gotten that a year or two later turned into something um even bigger. Like, I mean, I never expected to do Les Mis, and then I did Les Mis, and I left Les Mis, and I did Cats, and when I did that, I thought, oh, I'm done touring after this. Like, this is the end. And then I got a phone call, and all of a sudden I'm music directing Wicked. Like, so you
Mm.
never know. I never thought I was going to be doing Wicked. It's not something I, like, planned on.
Yeah,
Um, I think you just have to, you know, let it happen.
absolutely. And different from rejection, but have there ever been times where an opportunity that you were really hopeful for or excited about came your way, but then you had to pass it up because you had already made a commitment? And how do you handle that? What's that been like?
Oh my gosh, I just had like two of those in the last month. And
Wow.
for me, that's much, like, and they weren't like long-term gigs. It was, concert work, but for me, that's much harder than, like, getting a rejection. Like, I really am not good at saying no. I
Mhm.
don't like saying no, because then you think about, like, oh, are they going to ask me back? Or it's really hard. I don't like that. And then it's like, you really feel like you're missing out on something.
Yeah.
Um, but I think you have to keep in mind that if somebody asks you to do something, they believe that you could do a good job at it.
Mm.
And if they really believe that, they're going to come back to you at some point. Like,
Yes.
so I think that's what I try to keep in mind, is like, it's not, this is not the end. This is just the start. And honestly, it's also good to be busy,
Yeah.
and people like seeing that you're working and that you're busy. And I think that's good for you, just from, like, a marketing standpoint. People want to hire people who are working,
Hmm.
you know?
Absolutely. I love that. Love that answer. So you had mentioned that you've done both work on Broadway and you've also done a lot of tour work. What is the difference between those two worlds? I mean, obviously we know one, you're touring around the country and one, you're staying in New York, but are there things that kind of surprised you, or is it actually much more similar than some might think? Do you have a preference
I
either way?
think that the difference with tour is for everybody who wants to tour in the future or would like to do that, touring, um, if you're doing a show on Broadway or even regionally, I guess,
Mhm.
well, I guess not regionally, but if you're close to home doing it, if you're doing a show in the New York area or something,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you get to go home to your family or whatever, just your house, whatever your life is made of, consists of. On tour, you get to go back to a hotel room or an Airbnb, and there's also a lot more time together. Like, even if you're not that social of a person, you're going to see people at the hotel. You're going to do things together because you're in, right now I'm in Grand Rapids. Like, I don't want to go to the Grand Rapids Botanical Gardens on my own. I want to go with people, and you have a built-in set of friends who are also colleagues. So I
Mhm.
think that can be a plus and a minus,
Yeah.
you know. Um, I like social time. I also like time on my own. So it's just a balancing act trying to figure out what suits you. And tour is more suited to some people than other people. Like, it's just, and it depends on the day.
Hmm. Now,
Yeah.
when y'all are touring, do you take flights, buses? Has that ever been kind of an overwhelming going from city to city and, traveling constantly?
Yeah. Um, I mean, it's a mix. So usually we fly, but there are a number of people who drive on tour. I used to do that.
Oh.
Um, it can be frustrating because you oftentimes, as everyone knows, the airlines do not run on time, or there's weather, or there's something, and you just want to like get there. Keep in mind that we're closing in a city on a Sunday night, right? We'll have like a 6:30 show on a Sunday night, and then we're traveling the next day. And then on Tuesday morning, I'm rehearsing a new local orchestra for the show. So like your day off is kind of spent traveling.
Mhm.
Um, so that can be annoying if like something doesn't oh, like a few months ago, it's like we sat on the ground for 4 hours. Why? Because the windshield wiper on the plane was broken, and you're like, oh, I really just want to be in my hotel room settling in.
Yeah.
But you just have to sort of go with it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned prepping local orchestras. How does that exactly work with touring companies and conducting?
Yeah. So with like Wicked, for instance, we travel 6 core musicians, and then we pick up 9 locals in every city. So there's a contractor at every venue who
Mhm.
hires those local musicians. We get to the city, we rehearse for 6 hours on Tuesday, then we have a 3 hour sound check on Wednesday, and then the first show on Wednesday night.
Wow.
Yeah. When I was touring with Les Mis, that's different because the orchestra is self-contained, so all of us traveled.
Wow.
And there are pluses and minuses to both of those things. I really like on Wicked getting to meet new people in every city.
Yeah.
And there are always new issues. There are always new things. Like, we were really lucky. We have all these great musicians, but different things work well in one city. The acoustics are different in a different hall, so you have to make adjustments for that. There's always work to be done. So
Mhm.
that aspect is fun. Yeah.
That is so cool. I didn't even totally know that different shows did that. So that's really fun
Yeah,
to learn about. And that's, I guess, a way to keep the show kind of fresh is
totally.
having new faces come in. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
So, kind of going back to TBR, you have been an advocate for TBR and stayed engaged since you've left. Can you kind of explain why you keep those connections a little bit with your home tie and what it means to you to have that foundation from Theater Baton Rouge?
Yeah, I think that like a lot of people probably when I was in high school, I was so ready to go. Like I went to the lab school in Baton Rouge, went to U
Mhm.
High, and that was great. I still have like my best friend, we went to school for 13 years together, and I loved that experience. But it's sort of like you're going to LSU for 13 years in a row, and some people are like ready to stay and just cross campus. I was ready to like I had to leave. Like I
Totally.
was done. And I never expected fully once I left like to miss home as much as I do or
Mm.
did. So I think that's one reason. Like, and I have so many friends at TBR. Like, still people I talk to on the phone like a few times a week.
Mhm.
I also met my wife at TBR.
Oh.
So there's that relationship. I like played my first musical there. It's just a place that I have a lot of history with,
Mhm.
and so I think it's important. Um, I think it's important to maintain those relationships because that's where you came from, And also, if there are people down the line who like see what I'm doing and want to do the same thing or something similar, and I can be of help or service to that goal, like that's important to me. Um, I don't want to just be totally disconnected, you know?
Absolutely. Well, that's an
Yeah.
amazing viewpoint, and not everyone does it. And we're very grateful that you do
Oh,
stay
yeah.
connected. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but do you have any fun stories or crazy things that have happened with doing very iconic, popular shows like Wicked, Les Mis, Cats? I mean, has anyone wild come to see the show, or has any crazy mishap happened, or an audience moment that just like has stuck with you as, wow, this is insane?
I mean, I guess I um I always pictured myself doing like like Stephen Sondheim musicals and things like that. And but I've ended up doing these like mega musicals. So I
Mhm.
think the thing that I've been introduced to is just like the fandom. It's very much similar to like, people are into, they go to like Comic-Con or like anime, I mean, there's definitely like a Les Mis fandom, a Cats fan. Look, I didn't even expect it with Cats. Wicked. People who I see over and over again, like from city to city, seeing the show or like coming full out Elphaba,
Wow.
green face, or like we on Cats, we would have people who would come out in full out cat.
Mm,
Um,
my goodness.
so which it's really, I mean, it's really cool that like
Oh,
this is why
yeah.
these shows are successful, is because like they have built a fan base and people love it and they continue to come back again and again and again. And on the other side of it, like I think that my favorite thing, it took me a little while to figure out. Like I like to turn around before the show and like say hi to the people behind me in the first row, because it makes it like, you realize there are actual people there. You're not just in a box.
Yeah.
And now you see people who are my age who have like kids or nieces and nephews, and they're bringing them to see Wicked for the first time, and it's definitely like you can see how special it is for them to be introducing their kids to something that we grew up with. So I really love that.
I love that. Theater is the
Yeah,
gift that keeps on giving. Well,
totally.
do you have any other thoughts, inspiration, or whatever that you'd like to share? I know, not to put any pressure, but just any kind of final passing words of advice to young artists, be it either in music, in musical theater, in straight acting, just things that you've seen and or observed that you'd like to pass along to the young artists of Baton Rouge.
I just think it's continuing to pursue your passion and also creating opportunities for yourself. If something doesn't work out, then find another thing to do.
Mm.
Go to the next project, because you never know where it might lead. And at the end, it might lead you back to what you wanted in the first place, right? So it's just always, if you don't get a part, if you don't get something you want, well, go do something else.
Mm.
And then come back later, just continue growing those, create opportunities for yourself. And then I just think it's so important to say to like everyone in Baton Rouge, although they hear this all the time, you're so lucky. Like I've lived in other places, and it's not the same. Like not everyone has a community theater that has its own facility,
Mm.
that does as many shows as TBR does, that hires an orchestra. It's not like a common thing anymore in this environment, especially post pandemic. So
Mm.
I just want to encourage everybody to find a way to get involved, whether that's, like volunteering. They need people to do all kinds of things, right? Volunteering, donating, like that's so important. Buying season subscriptions, whatever it is you can, however you want to be involved. I just think it's important to be a part of it, because that's definitely, TBR, the symphony, all of those places make up the fabric of Baton Rouge. And I think I love sports. I love football. I love rooting for the Lady Tigers. My wife will tell you I was like never a basketball fan, but now it's like on my TV every week. But we got to like champion the arts a little bit too. And we're just as worthy and just as deserving, and the quality's there. So I think as much as we can all do to come together and keep building on that, it's just going to help so much in the future.
Oh my gosh, that was poetic. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And with that, thank you so, so much for joining us. And as you've discussed what a crazy and amazing busy schedule you can have on a national tour, thank you for carving out some time to do this
Absolutely.
interview. It has been so much fun to get to meet you
Yeah.
virtually.
Yeah.
So good luck with the rest of your touring time. And what city you said, Grand Rapids?
I'm in Grand Rapids and I'm about to go to Toronto for 7 weeks.
Ooh,
It's
very
one
fun.
of like the few cities I've never played, so I'm really excited about experiencing Toronto. So if anybody has any recommendations, Instagram, DM me or something.
Yeah, I guess, do you
Yeah.
want to share your Instagram handle for us?
I think it's just at Evan Roider. I'm really not good at it, but like,
Perfect.
please send me recs because I'm always looking for things to do.
Well,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Mary.